Hello, friends and listeners. Welcome to the show. I want to talk about AI today. Now, I've been using AI rather more than I should, I think, for rather longer than I should. So around about 2020, when, when it was first launched as something that could make pictures, and everyone suddenly thought they were an artist because you just put in it, create a landscape with a sheep on it, and it would produce this in a painterly manner, in a painterly style, I should say, and it would produce this picture, and you could say that it was yours. And in a way, it is. I've used a lot. I'll tell you about that in a minute. I've used a lot of AI in my own artistic endeavours. So, what I really, really liked when it first came out were the complete and utter accidents that it used to make, because it wasn't very good at doing what Mr. and Mrs. Average wanted of it, which is to, for a business or for an update on social media, or whatever, these sort of more marketing things, they'd say, give me a professor or something like that, and it would produce a professor, usually with 5 hands or 6 fingers on one hand or something like that. But I was using it for more imaginative sort of things and for illustrations for my books, because I do a lot of, or I was doing at that time, the Book of Immersion was a very picture heavy project, less so now. And it would give me all these really strange things, these really bizarre things with the sort of broken bodies and, weird faces. And there'd be certain words that I would use and it would really confuse it. And it would just throw out this incredible stuff, which I was quite captivated by. I loved it. And then I'd take it into my software and I would, cure the parts that were totally ridiculous, like 5 fingers. And I'd keep the parts that I found interesting. And then I'd add to them, you can superimpose things, use them, mix it with your own photography or whatever. And that's what I was doing. A couple of times it would produce something. I was using something called Midjourney at the time, and it would produce something so utterly bizarre. I loved it. I just wanted to keep it, and I did do that. And they're around somewhere. I'm going to republish them soon. Now, I paid for Midjourney. It was quite a lot of money, even by standards then. Now it's 60. It's about 60 quid a month. It's ridiculous, totally ridiculous. But of course, AI is really, really expensive, and it's using up the Earth's resources. Hence, they're all off to the moon today, aren't they? And I've got a feeling that there will be businesses who want to use the moon to, to further their business and ambitions in terms of maybe storage, data storage, or I don't know, just stuff. We can get information from satellites. So the idea of a satellite station on the moon isn't beyond the realms of possibility. So it's all very interesting. But anyway, I was really curious about what AI could give me as an artist and how it could further my sort of career. What's happened now is AI has become slicker in terms of generic production. So when the average person goes in and asks for an AI picture or an AI article, or I use it for all my post edit, my copy editing. I don't need a copy editor. I just use AI. And when the average person asks this of the generic average AI, like Chat or what's the other one, Copilot, what they get is a predictable quality in terms of quality, style, and sort of niche, even that is, that reliability is what customers want. But the other thing is, because these AI systems have been stripping the past and they look for patterns. So modern AI, contemporary AI, is searching and educating itself on the patterns of humanity. So, if lots of people, I don't know, like green, it'll give you green, for example. It's a rudimentary example there. But actually what's happened with these... But actually what's happened is the AI has stripped everything that we've done, probably since Google was started, I imagine. And in terms of visually, let's talk about visual. We can talk about literature in a minute. And it's looked at all the patterns and it's decided that this is what we want, and it regurgitates it and it gives it to us. And it's rubbish. It's complete rubbish because artists and creative people, we're not interested in patterns. Otherwise we'd be commercial artists, or we'd be doing, jobbing, I don't know, shop signs or something. We wouldn't be trying to come up with something that's novel, something really exciting and interesting and novel, and that asks novel questions. Of course, we're all culturally somewhat following a pattern. Of course we are, but not nearly as much as AI, tries to get us to do. So here's an example with writing. I mean, the biggest example, I think, with visuals is that everything is either this sort of blue tinge or this orange tinge. And it's just like these really muddy colours because it's just stripped everything and mashed it all up and come up with these sort of non-colours, almost a non-colour, really, with very little tonal differentiation. And it's the same with the language. So I'd written, I do a bit of, I wouldn't say it was erotic literature, but saucy, verging on smutty books. And I'd written this one piece where I said that a woman, a character, was watching her two male friends get it on, and she waited until they'd orgasmed and then got on with her work, something like that. It was just quite a flippant sentence. And I put the copy in, I put the chapter in, and my AI, I use Chat Pro, which is like, one you pay for, and it changed orgasm to climax. And I hate it when it changes my words. It really hacks me off. Anyway, I said, I'm interested to discover why you changed orgasm to climax. And it gave me quite a detailed answer, but it said more writers use climax than orgasm. And I thought, well, that's a really stupid reason to change my word, isn't it? That's a ridiculous reason. Why would you do that? I wanted orgasm because of the way it sounded. And also, climax is almost a word. Well, it's a word with different meanings. Whereas orgasm, we all know what we're talking about, don't we? When that word comes up. But AI was clearly shocked by this word, didn't like it, and felt that it was inappropriate. And that, having searched the deep web for the use of more palatable words, or not more acceptable, but more usage, it came up with climaxed. So I was really hacked off, and I thought, well, this is really annoying. And it was at this point I'd been using my AI to make a couple of paragraphs maybe they're a bit clunky or something. I would say, could you just rephrase this to make it more flowing or something? And it would completely and utterly change the whole meaning of the paragraph. Because writers know that words are really, really important. Every single word carries its own special meaning. And when you you weave them into other words and other scenarios and nouns and adverbs and adjectives, the meaning is completely and utterly shifted. I didn't want a précis of my work that would be more acceptable to the greater amount of humans on the planet. Do you see what I mean? And because Chat GPT is, basically Google's baby, if you like, Google search and a lot of platforms just completely shy away from adult literature or certainly adult imagery, but even literature, they're sort of not quite so comfortable with that now. And, that's fair enough. I certainly don't want children reading my spicy novels without parental guidance. I mean, look, I don't work with absolute raw, unsolicited, what's the word? Over the top ideas. or anything illegal or anything like that. So you could argue that actually it's perfectly normal. So that, we all have sex in the world, don't we? Well, unless you're me, I don't. But I'm too old. But I used to have lots of sex when I was younger, and it's a perfectly natural part of human existence. And as a sex therapist, I'm a qualified sex therapist, and as somebody who has worked in that industry and understands the importance of it, this idea that Google can just completely put it all away in a cupboard as if it doesn't exist is actually quite laughable. So that does annoy me about AI. But there are some other things. I think I built up my businesses using AI. I used them to quick launch ideas and experiments into podcasting. I've used AI voices in podcasting. People hate them. They just want a human voice now. They absolutely hate the AI voices, which is a shame, because I managed, when I was, I'd write an article and an AI voice could read it, and I was done in a morning. To read it myself is going to add an extra probably 2 hours. Not because it takes 2 hours to read an article, but because you have to set up the recording studio, you have to edit out your mistakes, you have to tweak here and tweak there, then upload it, etc., etc. And this stuff adds time and it adds effort. And before you know it, actually, your working day is much longer. And if you're like me, or multifunctioning, I've got several podcasts, I've got several cartoon characters that I've just done. Let's talk about those. Actually, I'd explored the possibility of AI working with me to do animated videos, educational videos for Telltale Kids, and it just could never get them right. It could never get them right. But what I did find it quite inspiring is you put an idea into Sora, that's Sora, which is an image and video free based AI. It's free, and it would throw out some things, and at that point I would know what I didn't want and I would know what I did want, and that's when I pick up my digital pen, and that's when I design my characters. So I've just designed Mosey and Maxie, who are children's characters for my kids shows on YouTube, and they're done by hand, and it's important that they're done by hand so that I can repeat them and so that I can build the brand. You know what I mean? So I find myself 5-6 years down the line of exploring the possibilities, the endless, exciting, wonderful possibilities of AI, actually finding that I don't need it anymore. So I've sacked my PA, guys. I've sacked my PA because I can go to spell check. When you write an article, okay, if you read it out aloud to yourself, but out loud, not in your head. You don't have to do it in front of anyone. Just read it and intonate it, because you can read a sentence in many ways, can you not? You can say, "I'm going out the door." You can say, "I'm going out the door," and it's completely different. Two completely different adventures, isn't it? Two completely different ways of telling a story. So if you read it out to yourself and you intonate it, you can change the words if you're not happy with them. And then if you read if you actually read it and record it and put it on your podcast, which is what I'm doing from now on, you can actually animate the story in such a way, in the way that you wanted it told. When you wrote it in your head, this is how it should sound. So you've got all this control over it, over your product, and you can become this, excitable, animated storyteller. Actually, as an autistic, I do find I quite over-animate sometimes because I realise that if I don't, I've got a really boring voice. It's good, no, 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 no. Do you know what I mean? So I do sort of animate things on purpose. I'm hyper vigilant about doing that.